The fog was still clinging to the city when the garbage truck turned into the narrow side street. It was that pale blue hour before sunrise when most windows were dark and the only sounds were distant sirens and the soft growl of engines. Street lights washed everything in a tired orange glow, reflecting off the wet asphalt and slick garbage bags lined along the curb. Kenji Sato adjusted his gray coveralls and pulled his gloves tighter. The uniform smelled faintly of soap and metal, just like the truck he'd been riding in since 3 in the morning. To anyone passing by, he looked like any other garbage collector, middle-aged, a little stiff in the knees, face creased from years of hard work. No one would have guessed he was the owner of Metro Clean Services, the company whose logo was painted on the side of the truck behind him. He preferred it that way. Every few months, Kenji traded his office chair and client meetings for the back of a truck. He rotated through routes, working quietly beside his crews just to see what they saw. Broken glass on sidewalks, angry residents complaining about noise, the occasional appreciative nod from an early rising jogger, and sometimes the kind of treatment his workers never fully talked about, but carried home in their shoulders. "Boss, you sure you're okay to be out here?" Marco, one of his younger workers, had whispered when they started the shift. "You don't have to prove anything." Kenji had just smiled. "If I can't do this work, I don't deserve to sign the paychecks," he'd replied. Now, near the end of the route, his back ached and his gloves were damp, but there was a quiet satisfaction in the rhythm of the job. Lift, toss, compact, move on. The truck's headlights cut through the mist as they stopped halfway down the block where bags overflowed from a knocked-over trash can. "Last stretch," Kenji said with a small grin, hopping off the side step. He knelt to gather a torn bag, careful not to spill more food scraps onto the street. Rotten bread, eggshells, soggy cardboard. It was a mess, but he'd seen worse. He balanced the bag in his arms, ready to hoist it into the truck, when a sudden burst of white light hit his eyes. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing out here?" Kenji squinted against the glare of a flashlight. A police cruiser idled at the end of the block, its blue and red lights off, but its engine humming impatiently. The officer striding toward him was broad-shouldered, his dark uniform sharp against the gray dawn. The metal of his badge glinted as he approached, jaw tight. Officer Daniel Crowley was on his last hour of a long, miserable shift. He'd been woken early, called in late, and stuck dealing with noise complaints and false alarms while the city's more dramatic crimes happened in other precincts. He was exhausted and annoyed, and when he turned into the street and seen the garbage truck partially blocking his way, his temper snapped at the easiest target. Kenji set the torn bag down gently, standing up with a slight wince in his knees. "Good morning, officer," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "We're finishing the route. Just a few minutes and we'll be gone." Crowley didn't slow down. "You're not supposed to be blocking the road like this," he snapped, waving his flashlight between Kenji's face and the truck. "People are trying to sleep, you're making a damn racket, and you dump trash all over the street." "We're cleaning it," Kenji replied, nodding toward the other workers in gray coveralls standing near the back of the truck. They watched warily, unsure whether to step in. "This can was already knocked over when we got here." Crowley stepped closer, the beam of his flashlight now pointed directly at Kenji's chest. "Do you have authorization to be working on this block at this time? I want to see paperwork." He blinked. "We have a city contract. The truck has the route. If you want, I can call—"
"I didn't ask you to call anybody," Crowley cut in sharply. "I asked if you have papers on you. You guys think you can just do whatever you want because nobody sees you at this hour?" In the mist behind them, Marco shifted uneasily. "Officer, we're legit," he said cautiously. "We do this route 3 times a week. You can ask dispatch." Crowley swung his flashlight toward him. "I'm not talking to you," he snapped. "I'm talking to this guy." He jerked his thumb back at Kenji, the one making a mess in the middle of the road. Kenji could feel his crew's eyes on him. He was used to insults. They came with the job. People complained about the smell, the noise, the timing. But there was something in Crowley's tone that went deeper than frustration. Something that said, "You are beneath me." He swallowed the sting of it. "Officer, we're almost done," he repeated, forcing his voice to remain even. "We'll clear the road, and if you want to talk to my supervisor—" You? Crowley snorted, stepping in so close that Kenji could smell the coffee on his breath. You don't have a supervisor. You have a boss who barely knows your name. You're just a garbage man, and right now, you're getting in my way. The words landed like stones. Kenji saw Marco bristle from the corner of his vision. Another worker, Luis, took a half step forward before freezing again, his eyes flicking between his boss and the officer. Pick that up, Crowley ordered suddenly, pointing at the torn bag at Kenji's feet. You're not leaving a single scrap out here. I was already picking it up. Before he could finish, Crowley shoved him in the shoulder. The push was harder than necessary. Kenji's boots slipped on a greasy patch of pavement, and he went down to one knee, pain shooting up his leg. Bits of food squished under his weight, warm and foul-smelling. His hands hit the street, palms stinging. Behind him, someone swore under their breath. Officer, that's enough, Marco blurted, immediately regretting it. Crowley turned, eyes flashing. You want to spend the rest of your morning in cuffs? I said, stand back. He turned back to Kenji, who was still trying to regain his balance. The old man shifted, reaching for the fallen bag, and in Crowley's anger-fogged mind, it looked like defiance. Get up, he barked. I said, move faster. Kenji lifted his head. The beam of the flashlight carved harsh lines across his face, highlighting every weary wrinkle, every gray strand of hair. I'm trying, he said quietly. My knee. Crowley's boot lashed out. It caught Kenji in the thigh, not hard enough to break bone, but hard enough to send a jolt of agony up his leg and knock him fully onto the wet street. He let out a sharp cry, more from shock than anything else. The torn bag burst open, its contents, half-eaten bread, old noodles, bruised fruit, splattering across the asphalt like the city's discarded secrets. Worthless. You people don't care how you look or how you work. Just leave trash everywhere and expect someone else to clean it up. The irony of this statement made Marco's hands curl into fists. We are the someone else, he hissed under his breath. Luis grabbed his arm. Marco, don't, he whispered. You know how this goes. We step in, we all go to jail. But that's the boss, Marco said, voice cracking. He just kicked the boss. The words slipped out before he could stop it. Crowley turned sharply. The what? Silence crashed down heavier than the fog. Kenji lay on one elbow, breathing hard, the ache pulsing through his leg. For a moment, he considered saying nothing, letting the officer walk away, letting the humiliation sink deep where no one would see it. It was what many of his workers had done when they told him vague stories about a rough night or a cop who didn't like us. It would be the easier path. But he looked up and saw their faces. Marco, furious and scared. Luis, wary and tired. The other two workers standing by the truck, jaws clenched, all of them staring at him as if waiting for permission to exist. He realized he wasn't just deciding for himself. Slowly, Kenji pushed himself upright, ignoring the throb in his thigh. He wiped his dirty gloves on his coveralls and took a steadying breath. My name is Kenji Sato, he said, voice low but clear. I'm not just a garbage collector. He reached into the chest pocket of his uniform and pulled out a small, clean wallet, its leather smooth despite the rough work around it. With gloved fingers, he flipped it open and held out a card. Crowley frowned, snatching the card with a scoff. What is this supposed to... He stopped. Printed in neat, bold letters were the words, Kenji Sato, founder and CEO, Metro Clean Environmental Services. Underneath was a familiar city seal and a line that made Crowley's stomach drop. Official contractor, City Sanitation Division. Crowley stared. For a second, the only sounds were the distant rumble of a train and the faint hiss of the truck's hydraulics. The fog seemed to press closer around them, turning the street into a small, enclosed stage where every expression mattered. You're the owner? He asked, voice suddenly smaller. Kenji nodded, a tired sadness in his eyes. Yes, he said. I hired these men. I signed the contract your city uses to keep these streets clean. I pay taxes that buy your car, your gasoline, your flashlight. He looked at the spilled garbage between them. And tonight, I am doing the same work they do, the work you called worthless.
Marco exchanged a look with Lewis, a flicker of vindication breaking through their anger. Crowley shifted his weight, his boot moving away from the spread of rotting food. For the first time, his posture lost its rigid dominance. His eyes darted briefly toward the truck, now clearly marked with the same Metro Clean logo on the card, and the workers standing beside it. A second patrol car turned the corner, called in by Crowley's earlier radio complaint. Its headlights sliced through the mist, illuminating the scene. The kneeling owner in dirt-streaked coveralls, the officer standing over him, the spilled trash like a crime scene of dignity. Sergeant Miller stepped out, older and broader than Crowley, his face lined from years of seeing nights just like this one. "Crowley, what's going on?" he asked, eyes scanning the area. "We got a call about a disturbance." Crowley cleared his throat. "Just dealing with a lawyering issue, Sarge. These guys are blocking They're working our contracted route," Marco cut in before he could stop himself. "And he kicked our boss." Miller's eyebrows rose. "Your boss?" Kenji struggled to his feet with Marco's help, then handed the card to the sergeant. Miller read it, his jaw tightening slightly. He turned to Crowley, voice level but edged. "You laid hands on him?" Crowley swallowed. "He wasn't moving fast enough. The truck was in the road. You kicked him," Louis said quietly, "while he was on his knees." The words hung there, heavy. Miller's gaze lingered on the scattered trash, the bruised fruit, the old man's stained coveralls. Then he looked at Kenji. "Mr. Sato, are you injured?" Kenji shook his head slowly. "I'll bruise, nothing more. I've taken worse hits in my life." He glanced at his workers, then back at the officers. "What hurts more is knowing this is how my men are treated when I'm not with them." Miller exhaled, a sound of resignation and weariness. "We'll need to file a report. Internal Affairs will review Crowley's conduct. I'm sorry this happened." Crowley looked at Kenji, shame creeping into his expression. "I didn't know who you were," he muttered. Kenji's answer was soft but sharp. "You shouldn't need to know who I am. If I'm a CEO or a janitor or a man with no job at all, you shouldn't kick anyone doing the work your city depends on." The fog swirled between them like a living thing. In the days that followed, the story of the Garbage Man CEO spread quietly at first, through whispers in precinct hallways, through conversations among sanitation crews, through a grainy cell phone video Marco had captured just after the kick. Eventually, a local reporter picked it up. A small headline appeared online: "Police officer under review after confrontation with city contractor." But for Kenji, the most important change was closer to the ground. He started attending more safety briefings with his crews, not as a distant owner, but as someone who'd felt the sting of a boot. He invited officers from the department, Miller among them, to speak alongside him, not to scold, but to listen. They shared stories, some uncomfortable, some hopeful, about what happens when uniforms meet overfilled trash cans at 4 a.m. Crowley, suspended pending investigation, requested to sit in on one of those meetings. He didn't speak at first, just listen, as workers described countless small humiliations: a coffee poured out over a finished bin, a door slammed in their faces, a shoved cart, a casual insult. None of them made the news. All of them had left marks. When he finally did speak, his voice was low. "I thought I was just dealing with noise. I didn't stop to see the people behind it. That's on me." Some men forgave him, some didn't. But Kenji believed accountability was worth more than silent resentment. Several months later, another dawn broke over the same city. The fog still rolled in, the trucks still rattled down side streets, and garbage collectors still hoisted the weight of other people's lives into the compactor. But now, every patrol officer in that district had attended a briefing that began with one guiding statement.
The lowest paid worker on the street might be the one who signs your contract, or they might be someone with no power at all. Either way, they deserve the same respect you'd give the highest-ranking official. If this story made your chest tighten, don't let it fade like just another early morning headline. Remember the crews who clean up while you sleep, the invisible workers who hold the city together, and ask yourself, when you meet someone in a uniform, different from yours, covered in sweat, dirt, or trash, will you see just the job or the human being behind it?